Hi, hi, hi. I am live here today with the beautiful, inspirational Nicola Reekie. Hello, lovely to see you here on this sunny day. I can see the sunlight coming in your lovely summer house and hitting your face. It's really nice to see you here. We're talking today about because Nicola is a client of mine, but she's also a friend and also somebody that I massively learn from every single time I speak to her. When I first started working with Nicola, I had no idea how much of what she teaches and what she talks about would be relevant to me, because none of my children have labels on them. I haven't got a child that I can, has a diagnosis of anything. And so I didn't think that I just didn't, I wanted to help her because I saw what she was doing, but I didn't think it was relevant for me. And why I want to do this live is she has this amazing free summit coming up next week. Well, this week, actually. It's Friday, isn't it? Emma Lass says we're both looking gorgeous. Thank you, Emma. I feel like my eyes are on fire with hay fever, but I'll take that compliment. So Nicola runs these amazing free webinar, there's tons of webinars in there, but a free summit. You can buy a Backcess Pocket Pass so you can access the webinar. There's 20, how many webinars?
28
webinars. 28 webinars available from Friday to, when does it end?
Well, they can buy it for the next year, but if they buy it this Friday or buy it between now and Friday, they've got all the webinars in their back pocket till not Friday, 23rd of April next year, so 2022.
Oh wow, Kelly's just said share in my group, Nicola, and I'm signing up now. And this is really interesting, Kelly, because I've worked with Nicola for, oh my God, when did we start? It was about 18 months ago we started working together.
2 years ago in July. Well, we kept trying to have a Zoom meeting because we both...
Oh, I remember that. We just kept
great tech girls.
Yes, we are the worst tech people ever. And we put on these events. So I do these big challenges, and Nicola, the last summit you had how many people sign up to the last one?
We had over 4,000 in the Facebook group.
That and so you're running these massive things, and I do big events as well, and yet we are both completely and utterly like tech. The tech our nemesis. So we surround ourselves with good people. And one of the things Nicola said to me, I remember that really tickled me, was she said once, what I like about you, Lisa, is you make me realise I can do it too, because we're both just as shit as each other. I was like,
as far as tech goes,
inspire you by being shit. So back to PDA and not just our tech failures, but Nicola runs these amazing events. You can buy the Back Pocket Pass, but if you come to the event it's this weekend, isn't it? It's free. All the webinars are free when you attend, and then you can choose if you're there and you want to buy a Back Pocket Pass so you can, watch it ongoing. You can do that. But what is incredible about it, and what I find incredible about Nicola, and this is what the thing that I was just saying with Kelly, is that I didn't think it was relevant to me or to my children. And it was only literally yesterday when I was working with you and I went, why have I not signed up for this? Like, I just don't know, because it's not even about labels, or like a lot of people won't even know what PDA is, and we will talk about that, but it's not even about labels or diagnosis. It's about children who struggle with certain things that society expects to be normal place, things that we should be able to do, that society expects, not that they should be able to do, but the expectations of society. And that as parents, we think our kids should be able to do this, or we think we don't understand why certain things our kids struggle with. And so any parent who is feeling like, there's a list that I've put with this, and we're going to go through this now, but any parent who is feeling any of these things, there will be something in there to help you. Nicola is, what I love about Nicola, she's frozen there. I hope that was just what I love about what Nicola does is Nicola specifically helps parents to create calmer homes. So it's about how they respond to some of those challenges presented by PDA and other challenging behaviours is a term that is used, but I know you go beyond that.
I use the word differences because I think rather than challenging, we've all got differences, and what those differences may create is that by the differences not being supported, therefore the challenging behaviour comes up because that's their way of communicating.
Yeah, and we don't realise and this is the thing, a lot of parents just don't realise it's because the needs aren't being met, and it's not that the parents are doing anything that's wrong. It's that they just don't know. And so what you do is not only do you bring your knowledge about helping parents to respond calmer as a coach, but you also bring all of these professionals together from all over the freaking world, who, like, professionals in education, adult PDA, people who can give their perspective. You've got people in speech therapy, sensory experts, so much that, you know, you've got your expertise. What I love about you is how you bring everybody together, who just is this hub of just expertise. To, like, your ripple effect just blows my mind every time. Kelly has said, I know it's 100% relevant to me. Nicola has been very kind and sent me information to answer my questions. I'm just super forgetful and forgetting to sign. See, this is exactly what marketing is about, and this is exactly what mission-led marketing is about. We have to keep talking about our message, not because we are showing off or that we are being pushy or manipulative or spammy, but because of exactly what Kelly says. Kelly's like, I know this is for me, and I just absolutely haven't been able to just I do everything. I don't think I've signed up yet, even after a conversation yesterday, but I will be signing up because I'm a last minuter as well. Now, somebody here has commented, but I can't see who you are. I'm ever so sorry. It's just the way that StreamYard's working. The PDA Summit is amazing, and everyone with children should listen. And I think that's something I really picked up on yesterday, whether they have a diagnosis or not, because there's so much knowledge shared over the weekend. I've learned so much, both as a parent of a child with PDA and a professional working with other children and families. And that's the other thing you do, is you bring those two fractions together, the parents and the professionals, which is quite a tough thing to do sometimes. So thank you, Facebook user. And another Facebook user, wow, thanks for this. Learning about PDA has been so helpful for our family. And that's something you mentioned yesterday, wasn't it, Nicola, when you talked about how the awareness of it and being aware of all this stuff is really, really helpful, because it allows the children to understand themselves more, and it allows us as parents or as professionals to be able to meet their needs. And that it's priceless. It really, really is priceless. And actually, it's not just priceless, it's free if you just attend for the weekend. So
and you know, Lisa, you know why I do the free bit, because I don't want anybody to feel that they can't access it because of finance. And I know 6 years ago, I had to stop work, and I know so many parents have to stop work to care for their young people. And, you know, there is the possibility to buy the back pocket pass, and at the moment it's only £49, it's half price, but anybody can watch for 24 hours the webinars. There's 9. The editor did say it'd be a full-time job, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, to sit there and watch them all. And it's interesting because we've been linked through another friend, and his background's really interesting. But he's as he said to me the other day, he said, I feel that I thought I knew a lot about a lot of different things. He said, but this has blown my mind. And then one of the stories, Bethany's dad shares Bethany's story, and it's so emotional. And her story is that she ended up in a locked ATU, which, for anybody who doesn't know what that is, it's like a prison cell. Actually, a prison cell is bigger in a mental health hospital, because they didn't have the pathological demand avoidance diagnosis at that time, and they saw the behaviour as challenging behaviour. And when he edited the video, his comment of, I can't believe humans can treat other humans that way. He said, bearing in mind, I've been in war. He's an ex-military. And that has the fact that my team that have supported me are that rocked by it as well. And so being so moved by the stories and the information that's come in.
And that is the power of sharing experience. And that's what what you do so beautifully is you bring these people together and bring these experiences together for people to share. And I'm in awe of you. I've said it to you before and I'll say it to you again. I'm in awe of what you've created in your ripple effect, and how you've been able, that dad is able to share his experience and impact people and help people to know what they can do, what their next steps can be. And like you say, it would be a full-time job to watch it. But I said to you yesterday, if somebody who's never heard of PDA before, who just recognises some of these behaviours, some of these things that we're going to talk about now, they think, oh, that might, and that because you can see a list, can't you, that you've got different webinars for different things, and there might be something that just thinks, oh, that would be helpful for me, that would be helpful for me. So just if you've never heard of PDA before, if you're worried about labeling your children or putting diagnosis or this isn't about that. This is about next steps. Just see what there could, sign up for free and see what you can access that will then help you and your family take that next step. So one of the things that we wanted to do was just talk about some of those ways, those real life experiences that families may be experiencing, where the webinars will be a direct help to them. So one of the main things with PDA, the thing that is that the name suggests immediately, if you just look at the name, is finding it difficult to deal with demands and instructions. That, I mean, pathological demand avoidance, it's in the name. High anxiety and sensory overload. So I wonder if you could just take a minute just to touch on that and how it's affected your life, or how the families that you work with are affected by those specific representations of PDA.
Absolutely, thank you. Yeah, pathological demand avoidance was coined by Elizabeth Newson in the 80s, and there's a lot of people who find that pathological is quite, but it means that it's an internal, it's not a choice. And before I knew, I probably thought it was a choice. I thought that we were our son was trying to manipulate us. And what is a demand? Now, it's not your everyday type of language necessarily, thinking about what demands are there. And as an adult, we perhaps know our demands of, going to work, being responsible, paying bills, if we remember to, all of those things. But for a young person, what does a demand mean? Well, for us, when I first started to look into PDA, I did something rather odd. I recorded myself in the morning, getting my son up. And if you think in the mornings, or generally if children are in school, you ask them to get dressed, to brush their teeth, have their breakfast, to get their shoes on, to brush their hair, to get out the door. And normally a few more than that, and hurry up, come on, let's get going. And when you think about in an hour or an hour and a half, how many demands we give. And so that natural avoidance of any everyday demands, and it is an internal situation. And I've learned so much from the adult PDAs that I've spoken with. And I mean, I've had lots of conversations with Julia Dawn. The biggest thing that always comes out of my conversations with Julia is about how it's even the things that they enjoy. So she's a crafter, she does crafting. And she's like, some days, Nicola, I really want to do this. Or she makes cards on behalf of people. But it's just, the demand is too much. And I've seen it with my own son. He's a football, really loves his football. He loves playing football, not so much necessarily on the training. However, I've seen before where he is literally like frozen in the chair because it's that unseen demand of perhaps the expectation of how he's to play, the demand of, you know, putting on those football boots, the demand of being part of a team. There's all sorts of demands. And then Tigger Pritchard, who is one of my speakers, and again, I and him have had lots of conversations, but what's called the unseen demands, the sensory demands. So how many times have you sat in your kitchen and heard the purring of a fridge, the clock in a room going, you know, just the general noise within a home that has an impact sensory wise? So those are unseen demands. And then following on, thinking about some of the conversations I've had with Tigger and that he shares a lot about is bedtimes, the bedroom. Again, another massive demand is that there's a massive bed in the room. What does that imply? Well, you are to go to sleep. And, you know, a lot of PDAs can really struggle with going to bed, going to sleep. And that's a whole, I mean, God, pardon me, I could talk for hours on the whole bed thing, of why perhaps the bed or other bits, and there's other sensory issues. But so everyday demands, but, you know, things that they enjoy. I spoke with a parent yesterday who said a point where even holding a pencil was just that one too many demands and they need to step away. And, you know, the demand of going somewhere new. And it's interesting because I can now look back to when he was tiny and we'd go to be either going away for a holiday or going somewhere and he'd be ill. And this is when he was like under 3. So obviously we'd have been talking about what we were going to do. And even then it had an impact. And I remember having a builder. I mean, we've, you know, before we knew, you can only do what you know is best at that time. We didn't know about pathological demand avoidance. We didn't know that doing the work in our house was going to cause him massive anxiety. But I remember a builder saying, "Oh, how exciting, you're going on holiday." And our son just having the straightest face and looking at him going, "No." And he looked at me and he went and walked away. And for years I couldn't understand, but of course it's the demand, it's the anxiety, it's the not knowing, it's the fear of what may or may not happen, because as you mentioned, that higher I've forgotten the word now, the anxiety. So, and he sometimes is endeavoured to either stop me or his sibling from doing something that he perceives as dangerous. Pardon me. And so it can impact hugely on their life, but the sibling and, you know, the family, greater family, friends, because that demand of, if you have somebody in your home, and a lot of families don't, we limit, you know, how much, I mean, you know, nobody's been able to for the last year anyway. But
it's bonuses.
It's a massive bonus, and it's actually really supported some families, but some, they've been very isolated because they haven't had support. Especially,
but there's been less demands, I suppose, when you talk about, I mean, we're not here to talk about the impact of COVID, although that's another massive thing that affects different people in different ways. But when you're talking, it's quite overwhelming when you think of the demands that actually the demands, the expectations. I really like that word when you're talking about it. I hear the word expectation a lot, because we have so many expectations of us, of how we speak, how we behave, how we engage, you know, just how we go through our day, whether it's like health expectations that are there for good reasons, you know, like we should eat and we should brush our teeth and we should sleep. Those things are good for us. But there are some expectations that are completely and utterly, when you actually examine them, and it's one of the things that you've said to me like sometimes we do things as parents because we just do them as it's automatic. So, you know, oh, well, this is, a child should be doing this, or a child shouldn't be doing that, because that's our conditioning. That's what we've expected. But actually, when you step back and go, well, hang on, what's important here? What's the relevant thing here? What's the thing? What is the thing that really matters? What are the battles that I actually have to take on here? And what can I let go of? You know, and that's the demands of us as parents as well. There's a lot of that, I think. Too many demands and expectations of us as parents, which, as you know, is one of the reasons I homeschool, because I can't be dealing with, maybe there's something there for me as well. There's so much there, and you talked here about so many things that I've put on here as well, like difficulty with bedtime, meal times, and some conversations. So I know you said, like, they can be very vocal about things they're interested in, but it can be very difficult to get them on a topic if it's something they don't want to talk about. That's something you said to me. And consuming role-played games. You mentioned hypersensitivity to danger, but talk to me about the role, because that was something completely new to me yesterday that you mentioned.
So yeah, role play, and that whole word, it's another one that I don't really like, because you know, role play can come across as, I don't know, it's got some different connotations depending on how old the child, young person, or adult is. It will show in different ways. So for us, when my son was young, he was completely, and I don't really like the word obsessed, but so focused on being a soldier. You know, wearing the clothes, playing Playmobil. I remember either Playmobil or Lego, having the set, knowing the names of all the different guns, which partly because I didn't know about PDA, but partly because I'm a complete pacifist. I found really hard when he'd be like talking about all the different types of guns. But the role play, and so, you know, every game or every time with the figures would be acting out a particular piece. And I mentioned, and I still can't remember, when we first moved to Wales, there was quite a big world meetup of, you know, about Barack Obama, and a whole load of people were over. Somebody will remember, somebody will pop in the comments what it was. It was huge, it was massive. And so down in Cardiff Bay, there were army, there were the big military boats, there were the planes, and he was absolutely in his element, and he absolutely adored being down there. And, you know, is that just that whole conversation, that role play? However, it can also switch. Now, we've had quite a strong theme of two particular role plays, but other families have said that the young person will be an animal and be like very serious of that they are perhaps a dog, and parents have even needed to consider buying their own set of dog bowls clean that the child basically has. Why, and the bigger, deeper sense of this, I'm not going to go into, but it's a very, some may say acting out, some professionals may say it's not appropriate. I know a lot of parents I supported struggle with when the young person is very in depth of not knowing where the line is between the role and role playing versus, so is it imagination or reality, and that fine line between which it is. However, you know, there is a big industry out there that does a lot of role playing, you know, actors, actresses, singers, YouTubers, you know, and there's been quite a few actors that have, over in the last few years, shared that they, you know, identify themselves as autistics. We're yet to hear them, any of them, to come out and say, "Yeah, I'm a PDA as well." But
PDA, it is is it the language right? A profile of the autistic spectrum? Is that the way that?
Yeah, it is. It's part. Yeah, it's a profile.
So for those that don't know, it's part of that bigger spectrum. Yeah.
Yeah, and I see when I talk about autism, I talk about it as a circle, not a line, because I think we can all have segments who are autistic or self-identify as autistic or PDA. They'll have segments rather than there's often this thing of it's a line.
Or it's just like you fit in this box, or you fit in that box and that box, and this is like mild, and then this is extreme, and it's like, and you know, you fit yourself on that. Yeah, I can totally understand. I've not heard you say that before actually about the circle, and I really like that.
And I don't like this whole language, and I know it, you know, a lot of people within the community, you know, what is high functioning, what is low functioning. I don't like those terms, because one may say that my son is high functioning, and I really don't like it at all, because yes, he can feed himself, he can dress himself, he can whatever, but on some days the anxiety or the demand is so high, he's not able to leave his room or to leave the home. So where is that line? And again, you know, you said about labels, and in a way this whole sort of micro naming labels isn't particularly beneficial. And also having it as a segment, and I love Venn diagrams, also means that, and that I'm not, this isn't the place to talk to you about the spoon theory, but we, you know, our phone batteries, some days you and I can work up and, you know, we feel like, I don't know, 90% good battery. You can wake up some days and you're in the red. And the same for somebody who is got some differences. So some days, some of those differences will be really more extreme because of either the demand or the sensory need or whatever's going on. And
it's more complex than just here's the thing that you've got, and you've either got it and you haven't, and if you've got it you tick all these boxes, and if you haven't you don't. And I think that was the big thing that just struck me yesterday after all this time of working with you. That's it. And what do I say about marketing and how people need to hear a message several times before they hear it? This is a perfect example. It really struck me yesterday when I said, right, let's look at the things that people, that because I talk in marketing about the lived experience. So how does, it's one thing to say PDA, oh hang on, my phone, my battery isn't, I haven't got my plug-in of my thing, hang on 1 second, because that would be terrible if I disappeared now on everybody. This is tech, isn't it tech? Right, it's charging now, we're good. As we were talking yesterday, I said let's go through the symptoms is the wrong word, but in marketing, what I talk about is the lived experience, because it's one thing to say like a word like PDA or autism or those, and they can be quite triggering for people because they have their own stories, and you know, maybe they knew somebody who was autistic, who was very and I'm using this term because it's a term that they made.
Weren't as able as others, maybe.
Yeah, so they saw an image of what they thought that meant, and then they also don't want their child or don't want to think there's anything wrong with themselves or with their child, and they don't want that kind of labeling idea. But what I just really struck me yesterday was how this is showing up for people in their lived experience. So for example, we talk about sensory overload, something that comes up a lot, an awful lot. My daughter has this, and I know for a fact the amount of people, I remember first speaking to somebody whose child had this, and I thought it was just my daughter, but an issue putting on socks and where the line of the socks was on the end. And that just, I was like, oh my God, your child has that too. And I was like, I felt this instant like bonding to this person. Like, I thought it was just us. I thought it was just her. I didn't know this was a thing. And apparently that this came up because this particular child, she was going through CAMS, which is mental health for children and young people, which you're lucky if you can see them, right? And that was one of their questions on the assessment, was have they ever had issues putting on socks? And that's the first time for me. I thought, oh, maybe there's something going on here for my child. And again, we don't have a label or a diagnosis, and I'm not in the process of looking for one right now. But what I know is that what you're offering on your webinars will give me some information and support with specific things that my child struggles with. I mean, like we say, there's all elements of this that can apply to any child, because we are all just multifaceted, complex human beings. And often those expectations that society puts on us is completely irrelevant and unrealistic for everybody anyway, regardless. So it really, and I just thought we've got to talk about this, because it just, apart from the fact that as I've already said, I'm in total awe of you, and I want to help you reach as many people as possible, because I know what a ripple effect it was. It was just hilarious to me how yesterday, going through those lived experiences, I was like, oh, I know that lived experience. And from a marketing point of view, that's the power of connecting with how these things show up. It's not just about the language or the words that we use, but our experiences of life, and how many parents will understand the difficulty of bedtime, the difficulty of meal times, the difficulties of a child being really nervous and anxious, especially now. So whether or not it's a PDA thing or an autistic thing, or you want any of that, it is relevant to parents who have children with any of these issues that just want to learn a little more so they can better meet their child's needs, which creates a calmer environment for everyone, right?
Absolutely. And you've mentioned about the sensory needs. We've got two occupational therapists talking. Alison Hart goes through in a lot of detail around the different elements, talking about something called proprioception, which 5 years ago I didn't even know what it was, but how that impacts, and the sensory overload, and how to support a young person with their sensory needs. And as you say, I remember I hated those white socks, trying to put them on, but I think it was told to basically suck it up. Whereas now our children, we're able to hear their voices, and we're able to support them in such a different way. And I think that sensory side is so important. I remember leaving ballet, because I couldn't cope with the leotard cutting into my arm. So, and we've also got another OT, Anicia Bloor, who's written the most amazing book. It's by my bedside because I've been reading it. She really kindly sent me one. And it's all about connecting and letting go of the guilt as a parent, especially as a mum. And I'm really needing to let go of that guilt right now around the summit of, my list of, I ought to have done this and that. And when you're talking, and when we spoke yesterday I just haven't had the ability to write some of this. And it's like, I've had so many learnings of, next time we won't be talking to speakers and within 12 weeks putting something out to support people within lockdown and COVID, due to COVID. So there's the two occupational therapists talking, and we've got Libby Hill, who is renowned in the speech and language world. And she's talking about selective mutism, and that's another title that has got stuck, but actually it's much more about the inability to be able to speak in certain situations. And
that I would take, right, the amount of times, this is another thing, I'll talk to you and I'll go, oh, I didn't realise that, I didn't know that was that. So selective mutism, I would take it as a child that doesn't speak, but you're saying it's at different situations and different times where they can't communicate at certain places. It's not a choice. that there's certain places they just
and
can't.
it isn't a choice. And you know, education may seem as a choice, that child is being arrogant or refusing. And I shared it in one of your groups about how Libby's coming to talk, and a parent shared how their children were traumatized because they were deemed as being naughty by not being able to talk within school. And Libby spoke last year, and I've heard her talk quite a lot about it isn't a choice, and it's something so much bigger that they may be able to be very often talking at home and able to talk in different scenarios, but looking at, and she's giving some great practical tips, but looking at how do we communicate as a nation. And I'm a big advocate, and so are you, of talking, and I'm certainly struggle with the writing as a dyslexic, but looking at different ways of communicating, you know. And actually what's really helped us as my son's got older, typing, texting messages. But what works, I have one parent in my membership community who's got two sort of, it's not whiteboards, but like a whiteboard, she writes two things down for the young person to make that choice. And so they, you know, selective mutism's being discussed, and how to, you know, some practical tips. Also education other than at school. And I think this last year, I know that you had already chosen to home ed before the explosion. And, you know, we've got a trainer talking with a parent who also is a trainer to support other parents. But Laura Kirby, interestingly, was a head teacher of a specialist school who has realised, partly from our own experiences, how the school system isn't supportive of every child's needs, and has created a training program that supports and trains teachers and tutors on how to support PDAs, but any young person. I think her training of going with the flow, which is really what I think PDA is, like the revolution of the way the world goes, is going with the flow.
I think there's so much innovation that can come from it when we lose our rigid lines of what should and shouldn't be, and when, like, this is something I fully embrace as a business owner, embrace as a parent, embrace as an individual. Like, when you let go of those shoulds and you really let go of them, and you allow life to unfold in new and interesting ways, then we can have we talk about innovation, talk about creativity. Like, that's when we unleash that for everybody. Really, really powerful potential.
Absolutely.
If we stop people in boxes and saying this is what you should be doing and this is what you shouldn't be doing.
Absolutely. And this whole thing around how, you know, education is set, and as somebody who was a teacher, I mean, you now teach in a different aspect, you know, there is a very set way and very, you know, a set system. However, when we can trust, our young people can learn in so many ways. And I really see that with my son, of how, you know, and then also this whole issue around gaming and electronics, and he has learned so much. His need and want to learn more about football, it got him to initially it made him want to read, because he wanted to read his FIFA cards. But now, as a game, he plays something called FIFA. He does maths every time he plays, because he's looking at, you know, how much a player is, how much he's got in the bank, something called chemistry, which still I'm a bit like, but how different players work together, and, you know, what the benefits are. Then the maths side of it, actually, around,
there's so much, isn't there? And this, what was it? Oh, Ira came to me the other day and she was like, Mum, I just realised I was doing maths and I didn't even know it. And she'd been doing this and she'd been working out. It was something to do with Roblox. And she'd done the same thing. And it is that it's that acceptance that learning is everywhere and that every child is different. And when we give them the opportunities to explore what's around, I mean, as a home editor, I could talk about this all day. And I think that when we meet up with, we started to again, but I'm connected to a lot of home ed families, and a lot of them, whether there's a label or not, a lot of them acknowledge that their children, some of the children they've decided that they didn't want their children to go to school from when they were little. So it's not that, it was a decision from the parent. But for a lot of them, it's that the school system doesn't support them. But I could quite easily sit here and criticise the school system, as you would know. I think I've done that a few times with you. But actually what you do is it's about everybody rising up together. And so what you're doing is not sitting there as a parent and just criticizing and saying, it's wrong. It's saying there's gaps and how can we fill it? And so that's what I love about what you do, is how you've brought in these different people. Like, you have professionals speaking and you invite professionals. So like the person who said here as well, I just bring up this comment again about working, helping as a parent with a child PDA, but also as a professional working with children and families, because it's that ongoing learning that there's still more to learn, there's still more that we can do. And it's not just parents who are invited to this summit, right? It's also professionals who are working with young people, with children, and open to just learn more, and open to learn different ways of doing things and different approaches. And with 28 webinars, there is going to be something that anybody, even if it's like a dip in, dip out through the weekend. I mean, obviously there's this backstage pass, so you have access to all of them till next year. But even if if you've never heard of it before, and you're a professional or a parent and you recognize some of these things and you just want to add to your box of tricks of things that you can do to really support the people that are around you, the young people that you're working with. And yeah, it's just, I will 100% be signing up. It will be last minute, because that's how it is. So that's why it's important that you keep talking about it, to keep reminding me. So whenever I go on social media, you're there telling me to do it. So thank you so much, Nicola. Can you just give us any of those? I've got the link up here, like the link's up on the screen. It's not clickable because obviously it's on the screen. So after this, Nick's going to go in and just pop the link into the actual comments so people can click on it. But if you give us any of the details that might be missing, like the dates, the times, anything like that they need to know right now.
Absolutely. So it's this Friday, the 23rd of April, Friday, Saturday and Sunday. So webinars, they've got two ways of watching the webinars. So once you sign up, you'll get a login and you can do it through the website. And it's a Kajabi website. So if you have the Kajabi app, you can watch as you go. All the videos this year have been subtitled. There probably is a few glitches. And the webinars go live every day, 9 o'clock UK BST time, and they'll be up for 24 hours. So people can watch them for 24 hours. And the Back Pocket Pass is available. There is a half price sale till Friday for £49, which means at the moment the webinars are £1.75. And yeah, sign up, thepdaspace.com. You'll see all the speakers. We've got 32 indeed, speaking, but 28 individual webinars. And just thank you. And thank you for, our conversation yesterday of seeing how much there is that would support any family. And I sort of had seen, and I've just run out of time with getting everything together. And I'm really grateful because I've had some amazing support behind the scenes doing stuff that is not my gift.
Such a big thing. And I think this is something to acknowledge, is that this is a massive undertaking. you know, with all these speakers, you've got the real experts in the industry from across the world, and bringing all of that together has been, and you know, I've been there, I've seen the behind the scenes, and I, you know, from your perspective, and I know it's not easy. I know it's not easy, you know, when I do my challenges, or you know, any event that people are putting on, it takes time, energy, money, emotional, physical, spiritual, like financial. It takes it all out of you. But you have this incredible mission, and it's like, you know, we won't go into it now because I'm conscious of the time. But your story of how you, when you found out about PDA, how it was like a light bulb for you, about how it enabled you to then create the best opportunity to be the best parent that you can be for your son. And everybody's only doing the very best that they can. This isn't, that's just the way we are all doing the very best we can with what we have. And your mission is to help people to have more information and more support so that they can keep doing the very best they can, but the child's needs will get met in a more appropriate way for that young person. And yeah, I'm just so excited to see you grow and to see that ripple effect, and also to join myself. So I will be there 100%. So thank you so much, Nicola. It's been a pleasure, and I hope that lots of the people who are listening to this will join too, and I'll see you there.
Thank you so much, Lisa.
You're so welcome.